Once again, welcome to our biweekly demo sessions. Today we have Russell Albin from Blue Acorn talking about debugging process on Magento Cloud. So we feel this is a very valuable skill to have just in case when you have issues. So Russell, thanks for coming today and taking your time to prepare the presentation and giving the word to you.
Cool. All right. Thanks for inviting me. So the reason why this topic even came about was we were launching. We had a new implementation that was launching, and of course, the day before we were going live, a bug presented itself on the production environment for a pro production environment, and it was enough of a bug that it was going to have us delay the launch. And up until this point, I'd used remote debugging for like integration environments, but I'd never done it on a pro production environment. And so I went through the dev docs and they were very helpful, but I got to a point where I was blocked because it wasn't clear what the process was to actually make this work. So with the help of Magento's cloud support team, I got unblocked, and I figured that I'm very confident I'm not the only person that needs to debug a stupid feature that only presents itself some bug on production or staging, and you can't reproduce it locally. So mine was due to urgency, and hopefully I can save you guys a little bit of headaches by getting you the opportunity to learn how to do this ahead of time. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, if possible. Start the app, do I? Yevgeny, do you want me to just restart my app and come right back, or do you want me to just talk through it?
If you have slides, you can restart the app. We'll wait.
Okay. All right. I'm going to upload a PDF which has a lot of my notes in it, and then I will be right back. And let's see here. Oh, I can't upload. Okay, Yevgeny, I'll send it to you, and maybe you can pass it out when we're done. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Oh, wait, is it going to work? Hold on. Ooh.
Yeah, we see it.
Nice. Okay. That was awesome. Okay, so as far as getting started, the first thing that you need to do, which is probably the easiest part of this whole process, is you just need to add this flag to the runtime. What that will do is that will allow you the opportunity to use xDebug on that remote environment. For this first example, I'm just going to walk you through how to do it on like a starter environment or like integration for a pro environment. So first thing we're just going to do is we're going to SSH into this integration environment. And what I like to do is I like to first check to see if I'd already deployed this. That just saves me a step. And I've already set up the environment, so I don't have to worry about it. But yes, so xDebug is already enabled, which means I already committed this change to the cloud. The second step is the harder of the two steps. It's getting your local environment properly configured. But I'm going to walk you through each of the steps, and that way you will have the ability to follow along, and then when we're done, we'll have documentation on how to do this. But the first thing we're going to do is we need to create a new server. So for PHP Storm, for Mac at least, the quickest way is just to go to Preferences and then go to Servers. And then when you click on the little plus button, it's going to start the process of creating a new server. I'm just going to save you guys a little bit of headache. And one of the tricks that I've learned is to help differentiate your different servers from other ones. I like to just use the URL for the project as the name. It just helps it, it's easier just to track down. As far as the host.
I apologize for interruption. Could you please expand your windows to make it more visible?
Could I please what?
Expand your window to make the it bigger, because I think not everyone can see all details.
You're using an ultra-wide screen there, Russell, so it's tiny for most people.
Tiny for most. You guys don't have 40-inch screens? I'm so sad. Okay, let's change it to... PHP Storm. All right, are you able to see just my PHP Storm?
I will see a bigger screen.
Okay. This is fun. I know I should have practiced this. Okay. Is that better?
That's a lot better. Lots better.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to have to toggle between my different windows, so that way it's nice and big for everybody. Okay, so as far as creating your server, once again, just use the URL of your project for the name. That should help you differentiate it. For the host, it's going to be the URL minus the HTTPS or anything like that. It's literally just the URL. And in my case, I'm using a cloud project, so it's going to be a really long, ugly URL. Make sure you use port 443. I doubt anybody's running on port 80, but just make sure it's 443. Make sure it's xDebug for your dropdown. The other thing that you're going to need to do is on your server itself, you need to have the path to the directory where Magento is installed. And you get this by logging into the server and just doing pwd once you've SSH'd in. And for cloud on like integration, it's always app. And then if it's like a production environment or whatever, you usually have the project ID afterward. Other than that, all you have to do is just click apply, and then that will get your server configured. And let me see if I could just share my whole screen, because I think that would be better. Just going to pull this down here. Okay. Is that relatively easier for everybody to read? I'm hoping so. Okay, so now that we've got the server configured, the next step that we need to do is we need to create a remote debug. And the way you do that is when you click on Edit Configurations, you're going to use the little plus arrow, and you're going to choose the PHP Remote Debug. And once you've done that, just give it some test, some name. It doesn't really matter. For the server, well, also make sure that you check this filter debug by ID key. For the server, make sure that you choose the server that you just created. And then for your IDE key, for starter environments, it's just the word PHP Storm. So let me pull up that one. So that we can see what it looks like. So it's just the word PHP Storm. And once again, make sure you pick your server from the servers that you just created. And once you've done that, all you have to do is click OK. And you've basically gotten about as far as you need to go as far as PHP Storm's configured. So we have the clouds ready because we added the flag to xDebug and we deployed it. PHP Storm is now ready because we've properly configured it. So now the only trick is to do a port forward of port 9000 from your local computer to the cloud. And so the way that works is you get this information from the cloud docs, but I'll just blow this up a little bit. So what you're going to do is you're going to do SSH and then dash capital R and then port 9000 colon localhost colon 9000 and then the SSH URL to your cloud project. So that's the pattern, and this is all documented in the cloud documentation. But once you've got that done and you're ready to try this, you'll just open up your terminal. And you'll do your connection. So as long as you make a successful connection for these integration environments, that's about all you have to do. At that point, you've made the connection, your local environment's configured, and your cloud environment's configured. So now we can actually try to kick off the debugger. And so the easiest way to make this work is to use a get parameter. And I'll just pull this back down. So by adding this question mark and then xDebug _ session _ start equals PHP Storm, by adding that to the URL to the cloud project that you just connected, what that does is that will allow you to automatically start the debugging process. And that way you don't have to worry about like doing a plugin to your browser. So all we need to do is go back to your PHP Storm, turn on your listener, make sure that your debugger configuration is the one selected. And then if we hit the page, you'll notice that the debugger picked up right where I put a breakpoint on the pub index. And now we're ready to debug this environment. Everybody wondering about testing like a command line. That is also available through basically the same process, except for we have to do one small change. We need to add an export with our key. So via command line, we're just going to run this command on the cloud environment. Then with this syntax, and once again, this is documented on the Magento dev docs, you basically just call the PHP file with all these parameters. And once you've hit enter, your debugger will stop and it will act just like you did on the front end. So that's the easy one. So although it seems a little daunting, it's really not. But that's the easy one to do because there's one app server that you have to connect to. The reason why the pro environments for staging and production are a little more tricky is that there are 3 or more app servers. And then you also have to remember that there are the IDE key for xDebug is not PHP Storm. You have to create a support ticket with Magento, and the infrastructure team has to go and fetch the keys. And what they'll do is they will put that key on the production environment or staging, wherever you asked to have it enabled at. Without that step, you're unable to debug production and staging, which was one of my blockers when I did this. I thought you could just use PHP Storm, but I searched up and down the server. I couldn't find the key anywhere, and then it just turns out that Magento support had to provide that. So if you do have to do this, make sure that you create a ticket as soon as possible, and let them know that what your intentions are in which environment, and then they will put the key specific for that environment on the server. They won't give it to you in the ticket. They'll make you go get it from the server. So for pro environments, there's just a little bit of a nuance that you have to be aware of. Once again, you have to know that there are 3 or more app servers. You can have upwards of, I think 9 is the biggest one I've ever worked on. The other thing, when you SSH into a production environment and you try to look for xDebug, it's not going to exist. I'm sorry, for xDebug in PHP, it's not going to exist. And it's because that service runs on another container. But there is a trick to see if Magento support has enabled xDebug for that environment, and I will show you what that looks like. So,
really quick, Russell, is the xDebug flag on the runtime extensions required for staging or production environments?
Is it required? Yes.
Okay.
And so that's why Magento support has to help get it configured properly.
So we don't need to deploy that through the app.yaml, though?
No, it's irrelevant for those. No, they have to do it themselves. Magento support has to do that for you.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. So, all right. So for this one, I've got a pro environment that happens to have 3 app servers. And so what I'll do is the first thing we'll do is we'll pop into Magento Cloud SSH. And we'll do a php-v. And you'll notice that there is no xDebug enabled, which as long as Magento support says that they've done it, you can basically feel safe that it's been done. But there is a command that you can run to see if it is actually active. And with this ps fau wx, and then you pipe grep xdebug, and then you pipe grep -v grep. With that, you'll notice that there are xdebug configs here. So if you run this command and you see these 2 or similar lines, you know that you're on the right path. That means the environment is ready for you to test. The next thing we're going to need to do is for each project, it has a special project ID. That is something you need. This is what we're going to use for the subsequent commands. So make sure that you find that ID and you save it someplace. What I like to do is I like to create just a text file, and then I'll make sure that I replace all of the different values where they belong, so that way I don't have to try to remember it. It gets really weird. And then the other thing is you need the 3 URLs for your different environments. So if you're not familiar, just log into your cloud project, get the 3 or 4 or 6 or 12, however many app servers you have, get those URLs because you're going to need them. The next thing you're going to do is the PHP Storm configuration is a little different. It's not much, but it's just a little bit different. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a server like we did before. So I just like to go to PHP Storm, Preferences, go to Servers, and let's see. So once again, I like to use the URL for my name. I like to use The host does not have HTTPS. It's literally just the main URL, port 443. Make sure it's xDebug, and make sure that the path is where it should be. So if you're unclear, for pro environments, it's app / and then the project ID. But once again, you can verify that by, once you've logged in, you could just do pwd, and wherever you log in for Magento Cloud, that's your root, and that's where you want this configuration to be. So you want it to be app / and then the project ID. Once you've all done that and you're happy, the next step we're going to do is we're going to add a configuration for the PHP remote debug. And by doing that, you're going to use a little plus arrow. You're going to go down to PHP remote debug. And because I set this up ahead of time, the name can be, once again, whatever you want. This is just a cue for you to find it in the future. Make sure you add this checkbox to filter by ID key. Pick the server from the servers that you just created. But then the biggest difference is that you don't use the word PHP Storm. You use the key that Magento provides. And they usually stick it in the temp folder, /temp. And yep, there it is. So cat xDebug. So this is the IDE keys that you're going to need. So that you put here, and then when you're all happy, you click OK. And then the next step is to prepare your URLs for how you're going to connect. So you have to do the port forwarding again, but you have to do it for all 3 application servers. And then also be wary that you can only have one person debugging at a time. And Magento and this is another thing that blocked me. I was unclear on the syntax on how to kick someone off who might have left their debugger connection running. And so there are a total of 6 commands, but there are 2 for each application server. The first one basically gets rid of any other xDebug connection that was made. And then the second one does the port forwarding to connect you to the environment, so that way you can do your task. I found it easier just to open up 3 terminal windows, so that way I can see each one at the same time, but it's probably not necessary. But once again, make sure that you take the example that Magento Cloud Support gives you for the URLs, and just make sure that you update them with the SSH path to your project, and then make sure you swap out the ID, because it's too easy to copy and paste and then make a mistake. So here's my little text file, which I created to help expedite the process. So this first one is going to be kicking off any existing SSH connections that have been made for debugging. And if you get nothing back, or you happen to get some response back, either way it's fine. There's really no failure on that one. The second one actually does the port forwarding connection for you. Okay, so for me, it just shows a response of 1731, which I think is the process ID. So I'll go ahead and just pop open a second terminal, and I will kick anybody off who may have started that process. And then I'm going to do my connection. Perfect, I got a good response. I'm going to pop open another tab, and going to kick anybody off of that one. This is app server number 3. Okay, so now I've got a solid response. 2021 looks good. At this point, the other variance is that you need to add a get parameter, xDebug session start, with the xDebug key that Magento provides you. So this is different than slightly different than what we did for the integration environment. The syntax here has to be exactly this. And so we'll just copy this, maybe. And before we do that, just make sure that your telephone is listening for connections and your service is ready and it's listening. And if everything is hooked up properly, boom, there's our debugger. It picks it up just like it's supposed to. And command line is the exact same pattern. So as we did on integration. So that, in essence, covers the entire process from start to finish. There's a couple of things to note. You can use the verbose flag when you're connecting via SSH. That will output errors. It will help you track down what may have happened. Another thing to note is you can sometimes accidentally have 2 or 3 active sessions going on. That will confuse you because your debugger is just going to stop at random times. So make sure when you're debugging that you only have 1 active session going on. I don't know how it happens, but every once in a while I got stuck with that. The other thing is the syntax for starting and stopping are very similar, except for the word stop versus start. So just make sure that you're using the right one, because it's kind of frustrating when you keep hitting refresh and it's not working. Yeah, it's kind of irritating. The other gotcha was, whoops, turn that off. Restarting your browser. And then on pro environments, if you have full page cache, which most of us do, the other trick that I learned is sometimes you can't just hit the home page. It's better to hit like customer account login or check out some non-cache page to help you make sure that the breakpoint is actually hit. And I think, yep, and just double check your IDE key if it doesn't kick off like it's supposed to. That was the other big thing, is just make sure that it's copied and pasted correctly. So with that, I'll go ahead and open it up for any questions or banter from people who are going to heckle me, because I know it's happening.
Any questions, guys?
Ooh.
Cool. Thanks, Russell, for the great presentation. And we'll be sending the recording to everyone later. So if you have any other questions later, please let any of us know, and we'll try to help with that. Thanks again for presentation, and have a nice day.
Okay, great. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
There is a question about where you can get presentation. The recording will be shared in our Spark. I will send a link to it right now, who is not in our Cloud community channel in the Slack. There is a link. Yeah, thank you.